and I think that the general population is no longer surprised. I think that everybody in Shreveport is really understanding. I think that they're really starting to understand. I made a statement the other day that the majority of every neighborhood in Shreveport is comprised of very good people, and there's no neighborhood in this city that we have forsaken at all in any place. We know the people in the neighborhoods. We know them in every neighborhood, and it's a pleasure to be out there for them. They're praying for us. They tell us that they are, and they see us, and they tell us that they care for us, and we need that continued prayer because it's not getting any better anytime fast. What's concerning is that the police officers understand what we're facing. The people in the neighborhoods here in Shreveport, they understand what we're facing. We just wish that the police administration will get on board with that.
What's the top priority that you hope they will get on board with?
The cheapest thing and the fastest thing that they could do is initiate contact cover. That's 2-man units, all right? You put 2 officers in a police car, you increase our chance of survival. You give us a contact cover, you give us a cover officer there immediately. We do not have to wait on backup. We don't have to stop and wait. We can get there and we can provide the greatest public safety with the greatest safety to ourselves. I've said it over and over again. You can't take away all the risk from police work, but you can take steps to make officers safer.
What kind of cost does that come with it, Michael? Any idea?
Well, you immediately lose the cost of a second car on the street. So for all the arguments of, we don't have enough money to buy police cars, we don't have this, then you accomplish that from step one. The second thing is that it doesn't cost you any more to put the same officers on the street. You simply have 2 officers in 1 car. Now, does that mean that some calls will hold a little bit longer? Sure, but they're not your priority calls, because your priority calls, they always say, well, we dispatched 2 officers anyway. Well, then that makes sense. Let's go ahead and put those 2 officers in the car so that they have a greater sense of personal safety whenever they arrive on these priority calls at the same time. Just last night in Shreveport, you had priority calls that officers were going to. They were rushing from call to call to make sure that they got there, as soon as they could to protect one another.
Michael, the words or the numbers 1024, you hear a lot on the police scanner. We're tied up. We don't have enough people now with all the cars that we have out there. If we cut that in half, and I hear people saying, well, we ought to do it because the rolling stock's not working that well, but if you cut the number of officers down on a given night by half, how do we cover the vast geographic expanse of Shreveport?
Well, you're not cutting officers in half. What you're doing is you're pairing them up. That way, whenever you send 1 car to a call, the call is taken care of because there's 2 officers in that car already. You got to understand, whenever you're 1024, you are simply holding calls. All right, it means you don't have enough officers to dispatch at that given time. More calls have come in than you have people. But you got to look at what some of those calls are. Some of those calls are just simply citizens contact. Some of them are someone wants to talk to a police officer. Some of them are follow-up investigation for fingerprints. Types of calls that it's an inconvenience to wait, but it's not an emergency. When you take and you put the public safety and the officer safety together, the high priority calls are always going to be dispatched first. The same calls are holding whenever you have officers in single units, because there's 2 cars and 2 officers at the priority calls as well.
And I misspoke. So you're actually cutting the number of units in half, right? You're cutting the number of units in half by your proposal. How do you?
No, you're cutting the numbers of cars in half,
right? Units,
not the units.
Okay,
yeah.
We're talking about work.
A unit is an operational officer who can, a sworn officer that can take care of you. You're putting 2 officers in 1 unit, which basically it eliminates the need to dispatch 2 because 2's there.
Last time you and I talked, and we got a lot of texts and emails from police officers who wanted to be anonymous. And in one particular case, they listed details about some nights right now, today, there are only 8 units on the streets in Shreveport. Is that accurate?
That would be accurate for an area. There's 4 areas, and it's accurate a lot of times that your minimum staffing will be 8 in an area. That's not confidential. That's part of a daily worksheet that anybody could request a copy of. But that would not be accurate as far as the entire city. That would be accurate per area. Now, you're talking about a large geographical area, okay? The area that I cover, Area 3, is a very large piece of real estate. The districts are very large. You're talking about a geographical area that's bigger than other cities, okay? Mm-hmm. You could put Bossier City minus Barksdale Air Force Base. You could put Bossier City inside of my area. All right, And let's be honest, Bossier City has its own police department.
Sure.
All right. It's
right.
not an area, it's an entire police department to cover that same geographical size. So, Shreveport's a big place, and it's stretched out. A lot of real estate and a lot of folks. And we're going to take care of everybody. We need to be able to take care and survive the streets ourselves in order to do that.
Michael, what has changed in your view in that people are now more willing, it seems, to shoot police officers, to kill you and your fellow officers?
Well, I've been doing this over 20 years. I was in the Air Force Police at Barksdale Air Force Base. That's how I first arrived in Shreveport, Bossier. This is not a new concept. People confronting law enforcement having to push back, that's not nothing new. It comes and goes in cycles. Right now, you have a hyper vigilant media cycle that seems to be pointing towards policeman misconduct more than just overall criminal behavior. There are police officers in this country who do bad things, and they should be, held accountable and responsible. But to villainize police on a large scale, I think that's negligent, and I think that people are starting to reap the repercussions of that. I think that a lot of the folks in the national media, where they were trying to, get themselves some headlines and get themselves some airtime and some coverage, I think they're starting to see the ramifications of that now.
Michael, let me ask you real quick. I mean, interrupt you, but you've got a lot of sentiment of support swelling up for you, but there's also some anti-police rhetoric that's really ratcheted up. Does that concern the rank and file?
Well, you've got both sides here, all right. And the criminal element's always going to be 7 to 10% of any given population. You're going to have some rhetoric above that, but the silent majority is what's coming out now. It's so sad that you have to see so many deaths and so much, pain before the silent majority speaks up. These are the people that go to work every day. They go home, after work, they cook supper, they watch TV with their kids, and they go to bed. But they're getting fed up, all right? The good people in Shreveport, the good people around the country, they're getting fed up, and they're really starting to stand up for law enforcement. It's good to see that. I hate to see the sacrifice that it takes to get there.